Christianic CYInterview covering Las Vegas and the world. We're in for a good one today. Last night, the Las Vegas Raiders had their second NFL preseason game at home here at Allegiant Stadium, home of the Las Vegas Raiders, against the San Francisco 49ers. And who better to talk about the Las Vegas Raiders than, of course, Maurice Moton. Can find him on Bleacher Report. Of course, all of his great sports reporting on there. And of course, the Silver and Black Today podcast, which can also be found on YouTube. Of course, go over to X, Moemoton at Mo Moton to see all of his sports updates. Of course, we're welcoming back Maurice Moton to talk about the Las Vegas Raiders a couple weeks away from the regular season. Maurice, thanks as always for being on CYInterview. How are you today?
Good. How are you? Good day to talk Raiders. Every day is a good day to talk Raiders.
Oh, I agree with that. So here's what I'm going to just say. Let's just start with it. What do you think? Did we learn anything from last night's preseason game against the 49ers?
Definitely learned a couple of things. One, Ashton Jeanty is the real deal. He catches the pass, gets popped in the shoulder, comes out of the game, goes into the medical tent, comes back out, and is still the same rugged, tackle-breaking running back he was before the injury. He had a 13-yard run, shrugged off a few 49ers defenders, and then finishes the drive with a touchdown. He's the real deal. There were a lot of people concerned. I don't know why after one preseason game, but there were a lot of people concerned after he only had -1 rushing yard in the first preseason game against the Seahawks. And I tell people, just relax, give him some time, let him find his rhythm, and he definitely did that against the 49ers. On the negative side, I will say that the Raiders need to go out and add some defensive backs. Their cornerbacks haven't made any game-changing plays in the two preseason games. It's been their safeties. Jeremy Chin had an interception on Saturday. Isaiah Pola-Mao had an interception in their first preseason game, but nothing much from the cornerbacks. Now they're not terrible, but they're not exactly making the big plays you need to see out of that position, because once the regular season starts, you're not going against backups and third stringers. You're going up against starters. You're going against Patrick Mahomes, CJ Stroud, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels. Those are the quarterbacks they're going to see this season. They're not going to see Carter Bradley during the regular season. So the cornerbacks have to step it up, and if they don't, the Raiders have to go out and add some players to that secondary.
Let's talk about a couple of guys. Tommy Malot, former Montana State quarterback who's converted to a wide receiver, had a nice kickoff return last night. Thoughts on him on the roster?
I think he could be wide receiver 5. He's obviously going to have to make his bones on special teams, as you mentioned, a returner, a kick coverage team. He's an interesting prospect because, as you said, he's transitioning from quarterback to wide receiver. So there's been a lot of comparisons to Julian Edelman, former Patriots wide receiver, who also is very familiar with Tom Brady. So, and as you know, Tom Brady's hovering over this franchise. So you have to believe Tom Brady may have saw a little bit of Julian Edelman in him. But if he can make the roster, I think he's going to be one of those guys where he's going to get the football in space. Kick on returns. That's going to be his calling card early. Now, does he work his way eventually into a slot role? Perhaps. We'll see if Jacoby Myers gets an extension. If he doesn't, then that slot position will be wide open for him and Jack Bech to step up into that role.
Okay, so let's take a look at one other person who I wonder, can he make the practice squad? Can he be on this roster? Carter Runyon, the tight end from Townsend, had 2 catches last night. Any chance for this guy to have any future with the Raiders?
I think he's a developmental player. He definitely popped on Saturday against the 49ers. His competition right now would be Ian Thomas, who, by the way, had a drop on Saturday. So maybe that tight end 3 spot is open behind Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer, because we know those are the top two locks there, assuming the Raiders want to keep Michael Mayer. They've been adamant about they want to run 2 tight end sets, which allows a third tight end to get in the rotation and potentially make some plays. And we saw Runyon do that on Saturday. If he's a person on their radar, wouldn't be surprised if he makes the roster. Ian Thomas, again, would be his direct competition for that third spot at tight end.
And they could send him down to the practice squad in case someone got hurt as well, no?
Absolutely. And I think that's probably the probable path for Runyon on this roster.
So were you surprised by anyone else's performance last night?
I wouldn't say surprised, but I will say that Laki Tassi has stacked some quality performances. Now, I wouldn't have been as surprised if he hadn't done it last week, but 2 weeks in a row now, Laki Tassi has looked good in the trenches. Mind you, he's only played 2 football games in his life. He's a former rugby player, 6'6", 373 pounds. He is new to the game. He is raw, 21 years old. But the Raiders hired Brandon Hunt, who came from the Philadelphia Eagles front office. And the Philadelphia Eagles developed Jordan Malot, who's a former rugby player, big guy, who they turned into a left tackle, a quality starting left tackle. So the Raiders are taking a page out of the Eagles playbook and saying, hey, let's take this raw rugby player, use his raw talent, and turn him into an offensive lineman. Now, Malot is a tackle and Lakitasi's guard, but the long-term vision is there. He can add some nastiness to the Raiders' run game because, you know, there is some unsettledness on the interior. Pete Carroll said that Jackson Powers-Johnson is battling for a guard a position at guard. He didn't say Jackson Powers-Johnson is our starting right guard. There's some question if he is the starting guard there, or maybe Alex Kappa. Maybe they really do like Lakitasi and they think he could be ready as a rookie, as a very raw green rookie to start right away.
So here's what I'm going to say to you. You talked about concerns on the defense. What have been the shining positive examples in training camp and preseason on the defense at this point?
I will say this. While they don't have a clear cornerback one, they do have some depth. Caillou Blue-Kelly over the past week has come along very well. He had 3 interceptions in the week before that preseason game against the 49ers out of practice. He got first team reps. He also got a lot of snaps on Saturday against the San Francisco 49ers. So there's a positive there, right? And also what I'll say, Jeremy Chin coming up with an interception, a timely interception. If the Raiders are going to have to live off turnovers, Jeremy Chin could be that guy who does not come off the field. Isaiah Polamau has had a pretty good training camp. So it's not all bad. It's just the Raiders need a star maker on that back end. Now, their front end is going to have to do its part as well because they don't have Christian Wilkins anymore. They let him go. It was a bit of a distraction in the locker room. Max Crosby is going to be Max Crosby. But they also need Malcolm Kuntz to bounce back off of that torn ACL. Hasn't looked like the same player yet in the preseason. It may take him a month or two to get back up to speed, to get back to pre-injury form. But that defensive front needs to help out that secondary with all that inexperience on the back end. I do like Darian Porter's potential, though. Darian Porter hasn't made any big plays in the preseason, but you hear all about him at the practices. And if he is that Richard Sherman type player that transitions from wide receiver to cornerback and gets those interceptions, he could be your long-term starter around the boundary.
But I think that, you know, speaking about your last topic, Geno Smith coming in, Pete Carroll coming in, going to be a better offense in the last couple of years now. So that gives the defense a little more margin for error, right?
Absolutely. And I made this post on Twitter yesterday. Some people took it as a positive. Some people took it as a negative. But I'm prepared for the Raiders to have to win games 38-35 this upcoming season. I think their defense is going to give up some yards and points. As you said, gives them some margin for error because I think the offense could be top 12, in my opinion, maybe top 10, where Brock Bowers there as long as he stays healthy. But that offense, Geno Smith, you mentioned it, coming over from Seattle, knows Pete Carroll. He's been around the block, so he can take in Chip Kelly's system and do pretty well in it. But he's got Brock Bowers. He's got Jacoby Myers. Dante Thornton Jr. has been a surprise at camp. As a 4th-round pick, he's probably going to start. And then you got Jack Bech, who's slowly coming along, more of a physical player, while Dante Thornton Jr. is more of the explosive playmaker. And then, as I said, they keep Michael Mayer. They can run 2 tight end sets. So Geno Smith is going to have a plethora of playmakers around him. And the Raiders will be able to score 30 points in any given week, assuming their offensive line holds up. But the defense has to do its part if the Raiders want to make a surprising push for the playoffs. But as you said, it does give them a bit of a cushion, being that they can score points.
Well, you just reflected on my last question for today. Can they be a playoff team? I mean, it's a tough schedule. It's a really, really, really tough schedule.
It's a tough schedule and a tough division. At the beginning of this, Chris, I talked about the quarterbacks they're going to face. C.J. Stroud, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, the reigning champion Philadelphia Eagles. They're going to play the NFC East this upcoming season. They're going to see a healthy Dak Prescott. It's a tough schedule. I have them slightly below 500. But if you told me they got to 9 wins because their offense is just completely lights out and Ashton Jeanty is the offensive rookie of the year, it wouldn't surprise me. But if I'm being realistic, I would tell Raider fans, and I know they hate to hear the P word, patient, but be patient with this team. They won 4 games last year. If they were to win 7 or 8 and double their win total, I would say that's enough progress for me to believe that they're definitely heading in the right direction, that they can make a bigger jump in 2026.
9-8 could be good for the last wild card spot since there are now 7 teams that get in the playoffs as well. 9-8 could be good enough.
It absolutely could be good enough. The one thing I will say, though, is they're going to have one of those teams that made the playoffs in their division last year fall a bit. Because remember, all three teams, not the Raiders in the AFC West, made the playoffs last year with at least 10 wins. So Denver, Los Angeles, who knows, Kansas City, somebody's going to have to take a step back because there's no way the Raiders make the playoffs coming in fourth place in the AFC West.
Yeah, we'll see about that. Maurice Moton, of course, find him at MoeMoton on X, where you can keep up with all of his stuff. And of course, you can find his work on Bleacher Report, the Silver and Black Today podcast, which can also be found on YouTube and a bunch of other places. Maurice, as always, thanks so much for joining me today and giving us a breakdown on Las Vegas Raiders 2025 team. And we'll see you hopefully during the regular season.
As always, it's a pleasure, Chris. It's a pleasure talking Raiders, and hopefully they exceed my expectations and they're right where you have them, over 500 and potentially in the playoffs.
Well, I think they can. The offense was the problem last year.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that one.